Thank you so much. Genuinely, thank you so much for taking the time.
No, thank you very much for having us. I'm glad we could make it work.
I mean, for people that are listening out there, so I've never been to Scotland in general. And I'm visiting my best friend, Joseph, in St. Andrews later today, and I'm going to be there 10 days, but I'm very happy that we overlapped right here and we made it happen.
Yeah, sometimes things just work out, don't they?
They just work out, and we're in a beautiful studio. Shout out to Glasgow Podcast Studio. But I told you before we got started, a little tidbit, a little story for the masses out there that maybe don't listen to your show, or now they're going to listen to your show after listening to you here. What does the world not really know about Adam Rowe?
So, as I said to you before we started recording, it's quite hard for me to, because of the amount of hours of podcasting I've done with our show, have a word. There is so much about me out there that I can't really think of anything no one knows.
Right.
But I think, and I don't know, obviously a lot of your listeners are going to be from the States, so they won't even necessarily know these stereotypes. But in the UK, someone with my accent, a working class lad from Liverpool in England, and who acts like I do and has sort of become a comic. I think the two things they would never expect from me. First of all, I was studying maths at university and I dropped out to do stand-up.
Wow. Okay.
And I'm a huge fan of musical theatre.
Interesting. All right,
And
let's
I think
start.
that as a trifecta of a personality, I think is quite rare.
So maths was always your thing for a long time?
Yeah, so I was just, when I was really, really, really young, I was just good at it. Like, I just got it. Anything to do with mathematics, I was just...
Oh, the calculus and this?
Everything. A teacher would go, here's how you do it, and I'd be like, right, I know what I'm doing. So it was just in.
Oh, you're a cunt, because I'm terrible at math.
I was shit at everything else.
Fair enough.
But it was almost like... I just knew. I just got it. It was just...
So people thought you were like the little wizard of the class.
Yeah, so like... in even later on in school. So when I was in really little school...
Right.
Me and a friend of mine, actually, Josh, who I'm still friends with now. I'm talking, we've been friends since we were 4 years old.
Shout out to Josh.
Whenever the class was doing mathematics, we'd be pulled out and sent into a different...
Oh, so y'all were like the gifted kids.
Yeah. But the school had never had this before. This is a small school on a council estate.
That's impressive.
Yeah. And then because I was that good at it, you listen to your teachers and your parents and your uncles and your grandparents, and they drill into you, this is what you want to do. You want to be a mathematician, you want to be an accountant or an actuary or something to do with maths. And I just repeated it. It was like Stockholm syndrome of this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I want. And I got a week into being in university, and I was just like, what am I going to do with my life? If I get this degree, if I finish this degree, what am I going to do, and am I going to be happy with it? And I'd been doing comedy for a year, just like open mics and whatever. And I knew I wanted to pursue that. So I went to my dad and was like, look, because he was so proud. I was the first kid in the family to go to university, and he was really happy with it. And I felt like I was almost like breaking up with someone. You know that anxiety when you know you've got to break up? Yeah. So I went, Dad, look, I know you're proud and you've always wanted me to go to uni, but I'm leaving. No. And he goes, for comedy? I'm like, yeah. He goes, right, okay. And I was like, I just want a decade. Let me give comedy a decade. Let me give it 10 years. And then I'll still be in my 20s. And if I've fucked up, I can fix it. Yeah. I'll still be young enough to go back to uni and get the degree and start my life at 31, 32 as a thing. But let me give this a decade. And he was like, look, do whatever is going to make you happy. And he was dead sound about it, and I dropped out. And we're now 11 years later.
And I think you're doing pretty well.
It feels like it was a good call.
But that's so they thought you were like a little Einstein.
Yeah. It wasn't like genius level stuff. But like I was, so I don't know whether in the States I think you have A+, don't you? So there's A and then A+.
Yeah.
And there's also A-.
Yeah, more or less.
So we don't have that here. We have F through to A, just as the letters. Yeah. And then there's also A*, which is like above 90% of the exam. Yeah. I was sort of told off. I got in trouble with my school because at GCSE, I only got an A. Damn. because they were like banking on me to drag the Schulz average up, and they were like,
What the fuck, Adam?
I was just always good at it, but I didn't revise for the exam.
Oh, you were one of those kids? Nah, fuck you, because you know that's
at GCSE, and I idled through it. I was always good academically. I just didn't care enough.
Interesting. Have you seen that any of like that kind of knowledge has translated still into your life today in ways that you see that it manifests?
I'm quite good at noticing patterns because patterns inherently are mathematical.
Right.
So like, if I can sort of see something is trending a certain way,
right,
in terms of like, for example, the way the comedy industry works, like I'll go, oh, when people are doing that, they're having success, and when they're doing that, they're not. So don't do that and do that.
That's interesting.
And I think that comes from a mathematical mindset. It's what is getting results, what statistically is getting results, and statistics at A level was something I really excelled at. So, and I was sort of obsessed with it, and I'm still partly obsessed with it now. What's getting results? What isn't?
Well, you know what I think is kind of interesting, and I've only literally been around you for about 10 minutes now, is just in some of the different things that we've talked about off air. I think that you are very reasonable and calculated in a way, and self-aware. And I think that that's like something that, you know, for your listeners, they might already know that, but for someone kind of getting introduced to you, it's I think what you seem very honest with yourself about where you're at in your career, and I think that is I think that might be one of the most important aspects as you continue to grow, and why I think you've had the success that you have is that it seems like you know when to do things.
Yeah, I think I've been quite lucky is maybe not the right word, but I don't know of a different one. I think I've made, and especially with the podcast we've made good decisions at the right time.
Right.
But we didn't know it was the right time to make it at the time. So you've got to give a little bit of that to luck. But it's also a calculated gamble on the luck. Like we made as far as I'm aware, the UK's first purpose-built podcast studio for one single podcast.
It's crazy.
In July of 2020.
And for people listening out there that haven't listened to your podcast yet, that will after this, certainly, you've only been doing it for about
January 2020 we launched.
That's impressive, man.
And then when the first lockdown hit in March, we said as a joke initially, if the UK goes into lockdown, this was like two weeks before the lockdown, if the UK goes into lockdown, we'll do an episode every day. And then when we went into lockdown, we had like 2,000 listeners at the time. They were like, so we're doing this every day. So we had to do it. So we took Sundays off, but Monday through Saturday, every day, we put an hour episode out, roughly.
Wow. It's weird. It's a blessing in disguise, this lockdown.
Do you know what? This feels awful to say because of all the death.
Yeah.
The pandemic has really helped my career. I'm sorry to everyone who lost their grandma, but you know, she paid for the shoes I bought a couple of hours ago.
Nice ones too. Some new pair of Jordans. I saw them. That's hilarious. But it's true. I mean, and it's funny because especially with the comedians I've noticed, I think Schulz is one of the first people actually when I was introduced to you, because you went on Flagrant 2.
Yes.
And that's more of like the US scene, is like he's also another one of those comics that during COVID, you know, I think he took it to another level.
Well, yeah,
and he was good before, and I was a huge fan before, but I think now he also did a few different little segments and whatnot. But it's like I think it's so interesting how some of these comedians, I think creators in general, like they use that time to take things to another level, and I think you're a good example of it as well.
Yeah, so Schulz knows this. We've become friends over the past couple of years, but he's a huge inspiration to me and a lot of other
100%.
comedians around the world. Like what he's done with a failing comedy industry who were refusing to acknowledge the most creative talent in the world.
Right.
He's just knocked every door down.
100%.
And you know what he's done with his podcast, with his social media work, with his YouTube work, and eventually putting it on Netflix. He gives it away to other comics, and we're trying to mimic that with Have a Word. So we decided very early on that every inch of success we have as a podcast, and we're trying to grow it into a big network, we were going to share it with the comedians we love. Like if we like a comic and they are going on tour, they've got a book out, they've got a special out, we will get them on, they'll promote it, we'll share everything they post about it.
Right.
That comes from his attitude.
Yeah.
I said very early on, so there's a famous UK comedian who I won't name just because I don't want to get in trouble, but everyone thinks he's a dick. And any British comic listening to this right now knows what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Like, immediately. And everyone who worked with him was like, oh, he's an arsehole. One of the most talented comedians of his generation, possibly of all time, but he's an arsehole. Schulz, no one talks about him that way. Anyone who knows him.
100%.
So I said very early on to Dan, I was like, I want people to talk about us the way I talk about Andrew, not the way people talk about X, right? And that is a very deliberate thing because there's up until a couple of years ago in the comedy industry, and I imagine this is the same in a lot of other industries, everyone is competing for the same job, right? So let's say in the UK we have these panel shows and there's 6 comedians and a host. That means there is 6 jobs available, and 2 of them are normally team captains. Yeah. So it's actually only 4 jobs available. So there's 4 spots every week on an 8-week series, right? Yeah. So there's 32 spots available and there's 500 comedians. So there was this like famine mentality of not supporting each other because we're all competing for the same food. Once you take that out of the way and it's not everyone competing for the same job and there's no gatekeepers and we're all just making our own stuff, there is an unlimited amount of fans out there. Yeah. Like someone can be a fan of 25 comedians and they'll go and see every single one of them on tour. So that famine mentality is gone. It's completely disintegrated because if we're making our own stuff and I can get you on my podcast and you can get me on yours and you can share my special and I can share yours, we're all going to share each other's fans and there's nothing in the way of any of us selling the tickets and earning the living and the following that we've all been working for. And there's no one who went to the same 3 colleges in this country deciding who gets to be famous anymore. Yeah. It's all on comedians. Are you working hard? Are you creating your own stuff? And are you sharing that success with the people you like and respect?
I think 100%. 100%. And I'm not even in the comedy world and I can see that. But I think even deeper. So I think, first of all, that's good on the mentality side. But I think what's also very interesting is, if just going back to Schulz, is how I think that like when we look back in 50 or 100 years on the self-marketing aspect of anything, I think that he, in my opinion, is the contemporary godfather of how to do it on your own. And I think like, and what he showed, I think, especially during COVID, was just putting a 30-second clip of your work, recording, if it's a comedian, your own special and putting it out yourself. Like I think he's just a master at that and saying basically fuck you to the big corporations, which also was then an even bigger fuck you, I think, when Netflix was probably begging him. Yeah. And I hope he got a fat check for that. But I think like it's such a beautiful thing too, because him as a person, I think is just a brilliant human being from the people that we have mutually in contact. But I think it's also good because like his actions then reflect on people like you, and you're going to do the same, and you're going to help that small comedian that you think is really deserves that limelight. And I think that's the kind of snowball effect that the world needs. Yeah,
and it's quite funny because I've been doing comedy nearly 12 years, and I've always been very self-promotion minded. So from early on, I would share every gig I was doing. I'm gigging here, and here this week. If you want to come and see me, come and see me. And there was almost like a sneer from the rest of the comedy industry at a similar level. Oh, really? They were like, why are you telling everyone you're gigging in Derby? Who's going to see you in Derby? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Why are you doing this? And now those same people want advice on how to do it. It's always been so strange to me, the concept of self-promotion is like a vanity thing. Like, it's like, imagine a group of plumbers laughing at a plumber because he's advertising his plumbing business. Yeah. It's the exact same thing. Well, you're also not like, hey, I'm Adam Rowe, I'm the best comedian in the world. No, I am. But people that know you or listen to you know that you're a humble individual. Like you're doing this is your work, this is your job. You know what I mean? And you just want people to come and see it, so you get better at doing it, exactly. And you get better and better and better. I've never understood this idea that self promotion is this negative thing. Right. We should all be doing it. Right. It's insane to me.
So for you, was there a moment in time after you said, fuck the maths, comedy, and then after that, like you knew that things were picking up, like that, I can do this full time. This is going to be my life.
There's not a moment, to be honest. And
Okay.
I know, like, for the story, it's
No.
if there is. But, like, it just gradually got better.
You got better?
I got better and the income got better.
Okay.
So I was working part-time in bars and stuff to get by, but that actually clashes quite a lot with stand-up. Because the time you would be on a shift in a bar, you would also be on stage telling jokes.
Right.
So I was turning up late for work and having to say to the boss, look, I had a gig. I'm sorry I'm an hour late, but I'll still do the rest of the shift and whatever. And to be fair, a lot of my managers, there was a couple that weren't, but there was a lot who were very accommodating. And were like, look, we know what you're doing. Just get back to work, whatever. But it just gradually got better. So initially you're making zero. You're not even getting expenses for traveling to do your gigs. There's nothing. And then you slowly start getting 20 and 30 quid for a spot, and that pretty much covers your train or the petrol or whatever. Then you're getting 50, 70, 80, and you're making £20 on every gig. And then you start getting 100 and 150, and then it's 200 plus a hotel. But it's a very gradual process.
Right.
And not every comedy club moves you up at the same time. So you get to a point where some clubs are paying you £270 per night for a 3-night run, paying for all your hotel. So you're making 600 quid for telling jokes. Right. As a 21-year-old kid, for 3 nights work is just crazy. Yeah. But at the same time, there's another comedy club that's still only giving you 20 quid to do 10 minutes because they don't trust you enough yet to headline or to do 20 minutes in the middle on the pro bill. It's a really slow process, but eventually you get to the point where they're all paying you the proper wage.
Did you measure, I guess, when you first started working your way up, was your measure of success based on how much money you were making?
No. I realised very early on, having dropped out of university and still being at home with me dad. Right. I was still living in my dad's spare room. Say spare room, it was my bedroom as a child, I suppose. I realised very early on that I just needed to earn money as quickly as possible so that I could justify the decision I'd made to me dad and to eventually be able to move out and whatever. So the type of comedy I was doing for the first 6 years was not the type of comedy I do now. Right. It was the type of comedy that I thought would, and this was a subconscious thought, not a conscious one, was the type of comedy I knew was effective and would get big laughs and would get me moved up the ladder quickly, but wouldn't necessarily garner me a fan base.
Interesting.
And then it changed for me in one moment sort of thing when, and I've mentioned this on other podcasts before, and I will one day remember the person who said this to me. I was having a conversation, they said, would you pay to see yourself? Would you buy a ticket to see Adam Rowe? And I was like, no. And they went, so what are you doing? Why are you doing what you're doing? You should be the comedian.
That's a smart fellow.
You would pay to see. And I changed the next day. I think I went to a new material night the next night with the type of stuff I wanted to do. My style of comedy, my preferred style of comedy that I enjoy watching is very Americanized. It's very opinionated. It's very sort of, I'll throw a few stories in over the course of an hour, but it's very much like, here's my opinion, which isn't necessarily a popular one. Right. But now I'll justify it with 3 minutes of jokes. Gotcha. So that's a very American style. There's not a lot of British comics doing that. There's a few, like Daniel Sloss will do that. Kevin Bridges will do that sometimes as well. 2 Scottish lads. And there's more coming through now because Netflix has sort of opened the British audience's eyes to a lot of American comedy. There's a lot of the new wave of new comedians have seen a lot of American comedy before they're starting stand-up. So there's a lot more of that now. But still not total dominance. But that's always been my preferred style of, like, Bill Burr, Patrice O'Neill, Chappelle. Yeah. Like, these are the comics who go, here's my idea, and now I'll justify why I'm right. Yeah. Like, it's the best way to do it. I love watching an audience go, no. And then 3 minutes later, they're like, I actually can't argue with anything. I'll present opinions on stage that I haven't actually got.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah. So,
Like, what's one that like you'll talk shit about on stage, but you don't actually really believe in?
So at the minute, the second routine the first routine in my show on tour at the minute is that I think we should have let more old people die during the pandemic. Like, I feel like we wasted the pandemic.
And so now you're trying to catch yourself up and say that you don't actually you don't want people to die.
Well, yeah, I don't want people to die, but I can justify that opinion. So I like to treat comedy like I'm a lawyer, right? I don't care if my client's guilty, but can I get him off?
That must be fun too.
It's amazing. Because, like, I don't care if this opinion's true or is
right.
mine, but can I convince an audience that it's okay anyway?
Interesting.
So the jokes are the defense. The jokes are, here's why it's funny, and here's why it's okay, and here's why I think this.
Do you write things down in that? Do you write when you?
I literally don't write anything down.
Everything's off.
Everything's in my head. Like, I've got...
Not even on your notes on your phone?
So I can show you my notes on my phone.
That's interesting.
So the notes on my phone will be... Where is it? So that 2 sentences will be like a 5
Can I read the first sentence?
Yeah.
The first sentence says the title of his note is Stand Up Material X, and the first sentence is anxiety is so fucking stupid.
And read the next line.
I got a pain in my ribs and thought I'd overdosed on cold sore cream.
Yeah. So, you know, like herpes on your lips?
Yeah.
So I cut my lip and was convinced it was herpes from kissing someone, right? So I was hammering the cream.
Do you notice when you cut your lip? Like, how did you cut your lip?
So I burnt it on a coffee. So when I order coffee, I get Americano, but with cold milk to cool it down. And they didn't put the cold milk in. So I sort of threw it, and it went, and the lid was loose. So it goes all over my thing. And I bit my lip, and there was a cut on it.
And then
so I'm putting the cream on, but I get health anxiety. So I was like hypochondriac.
Oh, you're one of those.
So I was putting like loads of cream on. I was like, I don't want a cold sore. I don't want a cold sore. I don't want a cold sore. And then I got a pain in my ribs, and I was like, oh, it'll be the cold sore cream. That was my first thought. Do you know how insane that is?
That's insanity.
So that's where that note. I haven't actually tried that on stage yet. That's just the note.
Wait, let's hear. What about the anxiety is fucking stupid? I'm very curious about this.
Yeah, like the fact that is my first thought. The fact that there's a voice in my head who gets a pain in the ribs and goes, "That will be the lip cream you've been putting on."
You're mad.
Is insane. So, like, if I get chest pain, I'm convinced it's a heart attack, not the curry I've just had giving me heartburn and indigestion. Like, I convinced myself I had multiple sclerosis a couple of weeks ago because I had a hangover.
Is that the worst one?
That's probably the worst.
That's
one.
gotta be.
That's probably the worst. I was like,
so, at what point did you tell yourself, okay, maybe it's not actually that, I just drink too much?
So it's a constant battle in my brain. There's the reasonable voice going, you're a fucking idiot, you're 22, you're not going to be having a heart attack now, you don't do cocaine, you don't smoke, you're not that fat. Like, it's not a heart attack. And then there's the other voice that's just going, but you never know. You just never know. You just never know.
You always been like this?
No, so my dad had a heart attack on the 13th of December, 2013. 2013?
So you were how old at that point? You were...
I was 21.
Okay, yeah.
And a month later, I started getting chest pain, and I was just convinced it was a heart attack. And it's all stemmed from that. It's really frustrating to live with, but it's better to have this than all the things I think I've got.
You ever go to your doctor and tell them you think it's this, that, and the other thing?
Yeah, so I went with the chest. I went to the hospital
you're
a
mad.
lot. They just go, look, it's anxiety. We can give you... So they offered me beta blockers,
What's that?
It's a medication that slows down the pump of your heart.
Oh.
So not your heart rate, but just the speed at which it takes the blood in and pumps it out.
Right.
And I was like, right, so there's nothing wrong with my heart. And they were like, no. And I was like, but you're going to give me heart medication. And they're like, yeah. I was like, well, I don't really want to fuck with your heart if there's nothing wrong with it. And he was like, well, a side effect of beta blockers is that it helps anxiety. So we're giving you a medication that actually is for the heart so that you get the side effect. And I was just like, I'm good. I'll just learn to
sounds
live
a
with
little
this.
weird.
I don't want to fuck with your heart. So I refuse to take it.
So you just recently turned 30, yeah?
Yeah, January.
January what?
January the 11th.
On the 22nd.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there's people think that when they say that when they turn 30 it feels way different. Is that
How old are you?
how old do you think I am?
I'm not answering that question. 42. I don't know.
22.
You're young as fuck.
Yeah, I'm younger.
Oh shit! I thought like mid-20s. I was going to say like 26. You come across
42.
I feel like I've been 30 for 5 years. I feel like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It doesn't feel. It feels quite exciting to me. I feel like I suit being 30.
Well, you're also, I think, like, from the comedians that I've had on my show,
Yeah.
it kind of seems like a lot of them, I guess if I think about it, they kind of peaked around 35, 36.
Yeah.
So in that way, I'm like even more excited for you because things are going well. And like, just even from, I'm just using anecdotal kind of evidence, but like, that's also, you're still very young in general, but even in like a comedic journey as well.
Yeah, totally. I think that I'm lucky to have this. I'm at such a huge advantage to every other comedian my age because I've got 12 years experience.
Yeah.
And most people who are 30 have got five maybe,
yeah.
sometimes 2. Like people tend to start mid to late 20s.
Where do you see that the experience, I'm curious, like where do you feel like the experience kind of helps you in terms of the comedy
The more
scene?
stage time you've got, as long as it's good stage time,
Right.
the better you are equipped to deal with. It's the same as being a professional footballer.
Right.
You read the game better, you read the room better.
Okay.
Like, if I come into a room, I know who's going to be a problem immediately, who's going to be the best audience, where there's a problem with the room, where like every gig you do, good or bad, you can learn something from, and you just learn how to not bomb as much. You learn how to turn potential bombs into wins, and the more experience you've got, the better. And also, you know who you are more as a comic. There's a great quote from Bill Burr, which is, when you first are waiting backstage to your first gig, you know what your voice is. And then you go on stage and you lose it because you put into fight or flight. You know how you've made your friends laugh for years. That's what gets you on stage in the first place. You're like, no, I know how to be funny. I know how to be funny. You go on stage and the lights in, there's an audience going, do it now. And you go, right. You spend the rest of your career trying to find that voice again.
Interesting.
On stage. You spend the rest of your career on stage trying to match that on-stage voice to the person you are, making your friends laugh in the pub, the bar, in your WhatsApp group. The longer you do it, the closer you get to being you.
Do you feel like you're at that point now?
I feel like I'm a lot closer than I was 5 years ago. Like a lot closer.
Like how different is the Adam today that's at the pub with his mates to the one that's on stage?
So the podcast we do has helped me a lot with this.
Interesting.
Because our podcast it's not like purposefully offensive, but it's 2 comedians trying to make each other laugh.
Yeah.
And our sort of idea from the start, literally from before we even started recording, was, so my co-host Dan Nightingale, he's been doing comedy 6 or 7 years longer than I have, like nearly 20 years. And he was always someone I really looked up to when I started. He's so good. And he's sort of now really respects me and in many ways looks up to me.
That's
and
awesome.
he's said, like, you know, he regards me as one of the best comedians in the country. I still think that of him. And when you've got 2 comedians of that level who are trying to make each other laugh, if I can make Dan laugh, the people at home are going to be dying.
Of course.
So there's a certain type of humor that makes comedians laugh because there's something wrong with all of us.
Oh, you guys are sick bastards.
Whenever a comedian gets in trouble for something they say on stage, I'm always like, I wish the people who were upset heard what he said 3 minutes before he went on.
Or in his group chat or the text or whatever.
Yeah, because it's horrific.
And no, I know.
So, like, we tried to put that backstage humor on the podcast.
Interesting.
And because of that, that has garnered me an audience that will now let me do it on stage.
But it's also, I think, in that it's the authenticity.
Yeah. And my stuff isn't purposely offensive either. I'm not like a shock comic.
Right.
It's just, I know I can get away. Like I don't want to, in case anyone sees the show, but one sentence. There was a terror attack in Liverpool just before Christmas.
I think I heard you talk about this.
And one of my lines at the minute is one of my favourite things whenever there's a terror attack. And then I'll just smirk and leave it for 20 seconds. Because the audience, well, half of them are giggling and half of them are really worried. Because who in their right mind has got a favourite thing about terrorism? It's just an absurd, stupid thing to say. To just leave it, to just leave that hanging and have them go, tell us what your favourite thing is. Like, there's only a certain audience you can do that with.
Right.
And I feel like we've got it. So, and that is much closer to the stuff. Like, all the lads I went to school with in Liverpool, like I know you had Paddy Pimblett on.
Yeah.
So Paddy's a few years younger than me, but he went to my school.
Oh, really?
We were in the same school.
That I didn't know.
Yeah, he's like 3 years younger.
Did you know him at the time?
Not like on a friendly
Did
basis.
he have the hair at the time?
No, he was shaved head.
Oh.
He was just a lad a few years younger.
Wow.
But that school and the area of Liverpool we're from, humour's a big part of everyday life and surviving school and being able to take a joke and give it back. Mm-hmm. Like, the only way you don't get bullied in the type of school we went to is if you give it back to the bullies as good as you get it. Mm. That's how you get off with it. That's how you get the respect from these guys.
Yeah, yeah.
So the humour me and my mates have always had is the same as the one I have with comedians.
Yeah.
The friends I grew up with are as fucked up as all the comics I know are. So I've never had to sort of tone. So getting back to that voice, now that I'm getting closer. There's certain things I still say on WhatsApp that I could never say on stage or on the podcast because
it's heinous.
And it's not for the people listening. It's for if it ever gets clipped out of context.
Yeah.
It only takes someone to clip something I've said out and put it on Twitter and go, see what this guy said and meant it. Yeah. And then the world goes crazy. Do you know what I mean?
You Scousers are nuts too.
Yeah.
Nuts.
Yeah. And we're in Glasgow. And I said to you before, Glasgow is just Liverpool in Scotland. And Liverpool is just Glasgow in England.
You and Paddy are my only two Scousers that I've had.
Yeah.
Have you ever gotten into a fight?
Yeah.
So you never got knocked out?
I have been knocked out once.
Oh, so I thought Scousers don't get knocked out.
So, so we had Paddy on our podcast recently, and I was like, Paddy, at some point if you get knocked out, that's going to be
I know
everywhere. And he was like, yeah, and I'll just laugh about it. Yeah. But there's like, it's his catchphrase. There's a very famous Scouser getting knocked out in the UFC called Teddy Etten. Like, it's a very famous knockout.
Yeah.
I got battered by some guys a couple of years ago because I was trying to stop them hitting my little brother. Fuck. And I don't remember getting knocked out. I just remember waking up. My shoulder was dislocated. I was in bits. That's the only time I've been knocked out.
How did they were fucking with your little brother?
So it was Boxing Day, the day after Christmas, and we'd been out all day drinking. And I'm talking to me.
How old's your little brother?
4 years younger, so he's 26.
Yeah.
I'm talking to me barber. He's just in the pub we're in. I'm just having a chat. And then, when you hear a sort of problem happening, and I turn around, there's this big guy and me little brother. So I got in the middle of them and went, leave it. It's fucking Christmas. Pushed my brother away. I went, sorry, mate. And when I put my hand on him, that was it. Oh. That was his. I was trying to calm shit down. And he took that as,
oh, yeah.
Fuck you. And he got his hands and he did this onto me. It was like he'd been trained to knock people off balance. So he did that onto me shoulder. And all I remember is hitting the floor. And then I woke up hours later.
Is that the only time you're ever knocked out?
I think so. I had a lot of fights when I was a kid over like games of football and everything else. And just girls and not with girls, but over girls. And I did a charity boxing match a few years ago.
Yeah, I feel like I saw something about that.
Yeah, so I'm not like the biggest fighter. Yeah. Like I don't want to fight Paddy. But like, if I have to, then I can.
It's funny because Paddy too is like, and you'll probably can second this, is he has the utmost he's one of the most confident people I've ever seen in my life. Like I sat with him. Now you remember his his UFC debut, right?
Yeah,
you watched it. Yeah. So I'm sitting with him and I'm like, Paddy, like, what'd you learn from that fight? He goes, nothing, mate. Like I won the fight. And I'm like, Paddy, like there was a moment you got hit, like you got a little rocked. He's like, and And I'm like, so you can take away like maybe some defensive things? He's like, nope. But like he's a special fellow, you know?
Yeah, he's
as a human being, and I think as a fighter, obviously an unbelievable fighter, but also as a human being, I think like he's what I love. I think about humanity in general because he's like one of us. You know what I mean? And he's the same way he is off camera is the same exact way he's on camera.
100%. He's as down. So something I don't like about myself, right, that I can't change, is when I'm around people who aren't from Liverpool, my accent softens. So when I'm talking to you now,
it slows down too.
Yeah.
I noticed.
So this is not how I talk to my best mate or how I talk to Paddy.
Yeah.
I can't help it. I've always done it. It's just a natural, almost like I'm mimicking the person I'm talking to. Obviously, I'm not doing a Brooklyn, New York accent, but it's closer than my natural one would be. Right. I'm just slowing it down. And I think it's just from having to do it for work when I'm gigging in certain places that aren't used to hearing it. Yeah. And in New York in particular, I have to slow down a lot. Everyone thought I was Irish or Scottish.
Well, it's funny because I was listening to one of your, I think it was, I don't know which podcast it was. I think it might have been the episode with Paddy where you talk about like this difference. I think it was even Schulz that pointed out when you were on stage, when you came off stage, like like jokes are landing different because people are not understanding,
they're not understanding
the accent.
Yeah. So when I go back to America, I'm going to have to work on it a lot.
Yeah, but I feel like keep you know, what makes you funny is what makes you funny.
Totally. And that's what I was talking about with Paddy, is he is just him.
Oh.
He doesn't soften his accent at all.
He's he says some weird shit where I'm like, what'd you just say?
Yeah, but he doesn't care.
Oh, he didn't give a fuck.
He's just like,
he didn't give a fuck.
Yeah. So, yeah, he's as down to earth as it gets. He's been, since he came on Have a Word, our show, he's been at a couple of our live shows. He's just a good lad.
He is.
But he's obviously got that star quality.
He's a star.
Yeah.
You know it, like when you see him, you're like, this kid's a star.
He will, if he wins his next couple of fights, even though he's only 3 fights into his UFC career, there will be people screaming for him to get a title shot.
Oh, 100%. And he might even get one because that's how the UFC works.
Yeah, he's got that thing that McGregor had when McGregor
100%.
first broke in. It's
100%.
like, no, look, we know there's a big queue, but he is going to sell pay-per-views. And that's all people care about.
Are you going on to the London card?
I cannot tell you how devastated I am.
Oh, mate, I'm going to be there.
You going?
I'm going.
So I got offered a free ticket in a box.
Oh, and you know, and those the regular tickets are fucking expensive.
Yeah.
Oh, you're a dickhead. You got the
comedy club owner in Liverpool got a box given to him as a gift from a promotion partner. And so he texts me, he goes, you've got a free ticket in the box here. And I've got a sold-out tour show in Shrewsbury the same night. So I just want to say to the people of Shrewsbury, if you are anything less than the best show I've ever done, I'm going to fucking burn the town to the ground. I was... If I was any less professional, I would have just cancelled the gig. I'd just been like, look, we've all cancelled stuff throughout the pandemic. Let me have this.
You could have pulled a little, I got COVID. Don't tell anybody you're in the box.
Yeah, but then I will...
Oh, then you get canceled.
Absolutely.
Then you'll get canceled.
Get tagged in photos.
Yeah.
There'll be someone...
You can go with some...
It's going to be full of scousers.
Oh my God.
There's going to be so many Liverpool people there. They're going to want... I'll get tagged in by Carl and the guy who owns the club. They'll be like... The camera will probably pan to the box at some point. Like something will happen. I can't do that. I want to. I'm telling Shrewsbury right now, I couldn't give less of a fuck about that show that night. But I'm doing it because I'm professional.
That's terrible.
I'm sorry.
You know what you should do? What time is your show?
So the show.
You could watch it like together because it's only a 15-minute fight.
Oh yeah, I'll watch it backstage.
No. What? Or if it's at the same time, I don't know when you go on stage. Watch it like with the audience, or I don't know. Ideas.
I don't think you've got a good grasp on what Shrewsbury is as a town. Shrewsbury
I honestly don't.
Is a middle class
where is it? I don't even know where it is.
Town in the Midlands. So it's like an hour and a half south of Liverpool. It's at the middle of nowhere. It's a lovely little place, but it will be full of middle-aged people who couldn't give less of a fuck about the UFC. And if I was to go, just going to pause that
1 second.
and we're just going to watch this fight. I just need to hope. So his first fight that he had in the States,
it was on a good time.
Yeah.
For you guys.
Yeah, because they made it UK prime time.
Of course.
But so the place I'm going tomorrow in South Shields near Newcastle, I was there last time he fought. The place I'm going tomorrow. So I watched it backstage. I finished the show, come backstage, and his fight was starting as I got backstage. I'm just praying that his fight this time lines up perfectly with my stage time.
He's co-maining. He's co-maining, and I think that it's going to start.
No, I don't think he is.
He's not co-maining?
I think he's the one before the co-main.
Oh, really?
I think so.
Let's see. We'll see right now.
I think they couldn't give him the co-main on his second fight.
Really? Let's see. Hold on.
I might be wrong.
Let's see. We got to find this out right now. I'm surprised they didn't even just main him. I think they probably didn't want to do the card. Like, that's also a different thing to, fuck is this?
I mean, he is the main event.
Of course he's the main event. Nobody else gives. Oh, yeah, you're right. Oh, no. He's the co-main.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, but Hooker and Arnold Allen could have been the co-main. I was honestly surprised. I thought Paddy was headlining when I first knew that, like when I first knew he was fighting.
He is in that there's going to be more people there to see him than anyone else.
Oh, 100%.
But they can't make him the main event on his second fight.
And he's selling the Paddy hairs. Do you see that?
Yeah.
The plate. If I see, I'm gonna look out and I see all the Paddy hairs. That's gonna be electric.
Yeah, I'm just hoping for like a non-fatal, like insurance job fire at the theatre. Like the theatre I'm supposed to be doing that night. If that just goes on fire like next week on like a Tuesday morning with no one in it,
they're gonna come. This is incriminating.
I don't want anyone hurt.
Yeah,
I just want the facility to be unusable on Saturday the 19th, and then I'll be there.
Wow, fucking yeah, that's unfortunate.
Very, very annoying.
But you're a professional first and foremost.
Yeah, unfortunately.
As a kid, were you always like the funny kid, or did you even think you were funny?
No, I knew I was funny because I had to be, but I wasn't even the funniest in my group of mates. I was just the most obsessed with stand-up. I just always loved stand-up.
Why? Where'd that come from?
Me mum. So I remember the first time I ever seen any stand-up ever was I saw my mum watching Richard Pryor, and I didn't even get half of what he was saying because I was a kid, but I'd never seen me mum laugh like that.
Wow.
She was sat on the edge of her bed. She had a TV in her bedroom, and I was sat on the floor, and she was just wailing. She's just screaming, laughing. And I was just like, oh, this is good. And then I got introduced to Peter Kay and Lee Evans.
Okay.
And then after that, Jason Manford and Kevin Bridges are the two that made me think I could do it because they were too young. They both started when they were like 18 or maybe even younger. Lads from working class towns, Manchester and Glasgow. The first two that I got into were Peter Kay and Lee Evans, and they were very family friendly. They swore, but they were family friendly, accessible.
Okay.
They'd say fuck and shit and whatever, but they weren't like dropping the C-bomb every third word.
Yeah.
And I understood what they were saying. So even as a kid, I loved them. And then, yeah, I just... Like back in the DVD days before everything went streaming, I had a stack of DVDs like this.
So you were obsessed. Like it was like, I love this shit.
Yeah.
But I think also, now this is also just from kind of being around you for a little, is like, I feel like you enjoy making I think you probably enjoy making people happy and laugh, and laughter is obviously a factor in being happy.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's I think a lot of like the top comedians are like that.
Yeah, it's like there's no better feeling than making someone laugh.
Right.
Really. Unless it's sex. Like making someone come. But like when the best way I can describe it, and this is something I struggled with throughout COVID and the pandemic and not being able to do stuff, is you know when you're like anyone who does like an office job who's watching, you know when you step around the water cooler or you're in the kitchen, you're getting a coffee or whatever. And you with like three of your colleagues, and you say something, and they all go,
yeah.
And you have that little warm feeling. You're like, oh, I made John, Kevin, Sarah laugh. Aren't I really funny?
Yeah.
We get that every night for a very intense hour.
Right.
From hundreds or thousands of people. So like the venue I'm doing in Glasgow this week, it only holds 200 people. We're going to have to do like 4 or 5 dates here on the tour because we're just selling it, and I love it up here. And there's an affinity between Glasgow and Liverpool, which helps sell more here as well. So 200 people last night, and every time I said something that was meant to be funny, most of the 200 people, they laugh and they clap, and you're getting that for a full hour. It is impossible psychologically for me to replicate that. Mm-hmm. There's no amount of when I do the podcast, it's no different to me and you sat here now. Right. Although, like, I think we're doing 250,000 downloads a week at the minute, right?
That's impressive.
Across YouTube and the audio downloads, right? So there's 250,000 people who we're making laugh, but we can't hear them.
That's such a weird thing when you think about it.
So we're getting the messages from people going, "Oh, I love it, I love it," and that's all great, but nothing beats the live laugh. Right. And it's impossible during lockdowns and not being able to do stand-up to get it back. Yeah. So it was like telling a crackhead to quit cold turkey. You just took someone's crack off them and you're like, you can't have that anymore. Yeah. You can have it back one day, maybe, if this all goes away, but no crack for you. It was very hard psychologically for comedians.
But it's also interesting because for you, in your case specifically, is that's when you started the podcast. And in other ways, you were like, wait, this is kind of taking off too.
Yeah.
But I understand what you're saying. Like you're not hearing the laughs.
Yeah, but like it's two completely different things.
Yeah, it's different things.
The podcast is great for like long-term success and building a fan base, and I'll forever be grateful for it, and I adore doing it. It's one of my favorite things to do. Right. But it's still not crack cocaine. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. You can give an addict methadone. Yeah. And they'll be like, all right, okay, kind of cool, but I'm still missing the thing. Interesting. The podcast is amazing and I love doing it. But we were saying before, I'm a comedian that does a podcast. Right. I'm not a podcaster that does stand-up. Yeah. First and foremost, my first love, the first thing I've always wanted to do, and the one thing I know I'll do forever is stand-up. I will die on stage. Yeah. Absolutely.
I feel like, and that's the mentality that a lot of the greats, when you listen to them speak, that they approach it with.
Yeah. I have trouble with like producers of like the TV industry over here where they're like, this is a big difference between the States and over here as well. Like, so what are you using stand-up for? What do you want to do? And I'm like, I want to do more stand-up. Yeah. And they're like, you don't want to host a TV show? I'm like, well, I will if it'll sell more stand-up tickets. Right. In America, that stand-up is the goal. Like, everyone does a bit of acting. They might host the odd thing. But
that is interesting.
Stand-up is the thing that the comics want to be. There's a lot of people over here who get into comedy to get an acting job, or they get into comedy to get a panel show job, or they get in comedy to get a TV presenting job. They don't really care about comedy and stand-up and creating a legacy with it.
For yourself, what is like the ultimate measuring stick, or perhaps like when you think about your own personal goals, like what is it that would make you truly satisfied? Because you strike me as someone who like can appreciate the success, but also that like you want to keep going, you want to take it to new levels.
So the biggest thing for me is peer recognition.
Okay, interesting.
So other comedians that I think are good, thinking I'm good. If I think
so, you're looking for that validation. Yeah.
If I think someone's shit, I don't really care what they think. Yeah. But like a great comic telling me they think I'm great or even good, that does me for a long time.
Interesting.
So my eventual goal is I just want to be remembered as someone who was great at it by people who were great at it. As well as audiences. I'm not like disregarding the impact of audiences. They're the ones who buy the tickets and stuff. But someone who knows the game and knows the ins and outs and can watch it as an analyst of it as well as a fan of it and still think it's good, that holds so much more value to me. Interesting. And I'm not talking about reviewers when I say as an analyst. I'm talking about people who do this. And they can see what I've done. They can see where I've built a joke from and why I've took it there before, I've brought it back there before I send it over there.
Interesting.
People who know what I'm doing and the ins and outs of it to go, oh shit, that's good.
But in a lot of ways, that's also, I could imagine that could be potentially scary, giving so much of your, perhaps, I don't want to say self-worth is not the right word, but like of your personal success or happiness is placed in the possession of your peers. You know what I mean?
No, because I'm not asking them to rate me as I am.
Right.
I'm working to get better so that they rate me as I'm going to be.
Okay.
Like, it's still in my hands as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I've got to get better to get that recognition.
Right.
And I can do that and can get good enough that people I think are great think I'm great. So I'm not handing it to anyone. It's still in my hands.
Right.
And I just know if I keep working as hard as I am, that eventually everyone who I rate will rate me. And I'm like, we had a couple of comedians at the show last night who had a night off and they live local and they came down. Mark Nelson and Kai Humphreys, who I think both of them are fucking brilliant. And them coming down, just coming down to watch the show at all is a massive honour. And then to stick around afterwards and be like, fuck me, that was great. That is awesome. Just great for me.
Yeah.
And, you know, a couple of the big American guys who've seen me do my stuff and said that they like it, I'm like, yeah. Like, I'm on the right track.
What is getting better when you talk about the craft itself? What does that look like?
Being a bit braver. Being willing to take an audience somewhere they really don't want to go before I bring them back.
Interesting.
So that thing I said before of presenting them with an idea that they don't like and then justifying it, I think I should be taking a couple of the ideas a little bit further first. Further into the, here's something I said you don't like, here's something I said you really don't like, here's something you really, really don't like.
So starting with like the most extreme.
Not even starting with it, just going there at all.
Okay. Just getting, okay, I understand.
Just pushing an audience beyond their comfort zone, knowing I've got the skill and ability to bring it back, and trusting myself to do it.
Well, it's also, that's interesting. Because when you think about it, that's really what the best of the best do.
Yeah. And that's why I want to do it. Because the people I consider the best, that's what they do.
Why do you think that is in terms of like some of the best comedy is how much can I push that button?
It's because the more you fill a balloon before you pierce it, the louder the bang. Right? So if we had a balloon now and I go, and it's like this big, and I pop it, it's nothing. And the air you blow into the balloon in comedy is the tension you put in the room. Yeah. So the more tension you put in, when you relieve it, when you relieve the tension.
Yeah, that's it. That's the pop. Like literally.
It's literally the pop. It's the bang. It's the, it was all fine all along. Right? If you don't put as much tension in the room, it's
so interesting. It's so interesting that like that correlation of tension and laughter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where like, because people don't really think about it like that. When they think about they're laughing, I'm like, I'm laughing. When I'm laughing really hard, I'm just thinking about how funny whatever it is I'm laughing at. Yeah. But it's really because it comes from a place of like, I'm going to a different place.
Yeah. It's
interesting psychologically.
This is not how all comedy works. It's just how the type of comedy I'm talking about works. Yeah. And the more you give, and at the minute, I'm probably blowing the balloon halfway.
Oh, you feel like you're only going.
But, you know, there's another.
So, like, is like the WhatsApp group chats where you're like blowing all the way?
It's not. The WhatsApp group chats isn't more tension. The WhatsApp group is just more horrific shit. It's the worst thing humans ever say out loud to anyone, never mind. Yeah. The tension thing is just. So, like, the terrorism bit I've got at the minute, I take it to a certain point.
But you feel like you go farther?
I think I could. So, I explore sort of the racism element of how people react when terror attacks happen. Right. People wanting to be racist who use it, and then people who want to be seen as anti-racist also use terror attacks to their advantage. I'm only blowing that. I know I'm only blowing that balloon halfway up. Mm-hmm. I know I could make it bigger, but I just haven't figured out a way to do it that I'm brave enough to blow the balloon up more yet.
So what do you think? Okay, so where do you think that I don't want to say lack of courage. It's not lack of courage, but like where do you feel like why aren't you brave enough, if you will?
I don't know a perfect answer for this. I think it's just trusting myself. Like by the end of this tour, I might blow that balloon up all the way. Like every night I take it a little bit.
You try to push it a little bit.
I just don't want the balloon to pop in my face.
But do you really think that if someone's paying their hard-earned money to come see you on a night, that like even if you go to a dark place, they're gonna be like, oh my, Adam pushed it tonight.
Right. So first of all, some people would, but that's.
You think so?
Yeah, they would.
Okay.
Because and that's fine. Because, you know, I'm not a comedian who says people should never be upset by jokes.
Yeah.
You can be.
Yeah.
I don't think you should expect anyone to give a shit.
Yeah.
But, like, you can be. I could get away with it with my crowd.
Right.
However, here's a sort of policy I've got.
Okay.
I test all my jokes in front of not my crowd.
Oh, interesting.
Because I want it to be good. I don't just want it to be sycophantic laughter.
Right.
Once your audience already likes you, you can get away with more.
Right. Interesting.
And there's a couple of things that I will do on stage in front of my crowd that I won't do in front of a club audience. And by club audience, I mean someone who's gone to a comedy club.
Right.
They don't really know who's on. They're just going for the comedy club, and whoever's on is on.
Right. Okay.
Right. So if you think about like the Comedy Cellar in New York,
Yeah.
they won't really even look at the lineup. They'll just book because it's the Comedy Cellar. They trust the Comedy Cellar to book a good lineup, and they don't really know who's on and what they're doing. Right. I want my stuff to work in front of people who don't know me.
Interesting.
Because when I put the special out, it's going to be shown to people who don't know me.
That's interesting.
It's got to work.
Yeah, but then I feel like you're still, in a way, you're not hitting all of the reasons why people love Adam Rowe. You know what I mean? I feel like because you're still like, I don't know. I'm just playing devil's advocate. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but if you so here's what I've noticed, and this is definitely a thing in the UK, and it's something. This is one of the reasons America is ahead of us in terms of the top tier of comedian.
Okay.
Right? In the UK, when comedians are about to go on tour, they often do work in progress runs to their own crowd. So they'll hire out small art centres.
Okay, I see.
Right?
Yeah.
And they go to these art centres before they go on their big theatre tour, and they try the jokes out.
Yeah.
And that show is never, ever, ever as good as the first one they ever put out. Because the first one they ever put out, they've normally worked for 10 years in comedy clubs to be given the opportunity to get on TV, sell tickets, tape a special, put it out. So it's a 10-year sort of catalogue of work that they've honed in front of people who do not know who the fuck they are. And it's fire and it's tight. Once they've already got fans, your fans already like you. So you will get a 10 out of 10 laugh out of your own fans for a 7 out of 10 joke. You'll get a 9 out of 10 laugh for a 6 out of 10 joke. You'll get 3 extra points from your own audience. So if they just work out their new stuff, it's sort of like the maximum they can be is a 7 out of 10 show. So the new people who find their second or third or fourth special before the first one will not be as impressed because it's not as good stuff. So I want to work it in front of people who don't know me, make it a 10 out of 10 laugh, and then it absolutely blows the socks off your fans.
Yeah. It's interesting.
And then when it goes out as a special and people who don't know you find it, they're still impressed by it. I don't just want to be successful, I want to be good.
Yeah.
I don't just want it to work, I want it to be good.
Right. And I think because you have that mentality is why both can be work together.
Yeah. But you have to do it that way around to get both.
Right. 100%.
Because you can get lazy in front of your own crowd. Whereas in the States, so Bill Burr's last special, Paper Tiger, he taped in London.
You opened for him, didn't you?
I opened there. Yeah. The week after, he was back at LA at the store.
Yeah. I know they have that mentality. It's a grind mentality.
Yeah.
And that's why they're the best.
Our best comedians will take a year off.
And they go on, And
I don't get it.
But that's.
I do get it because they're happy. They're making a lot of money, and they're like, I'm making loads of money. It's fine.
I'm half French, so it's the same thing. They just go on fucking vacation. it's like you work to. It's different.
Like it's a totally different thing, and I will never. Like I understand taking a week or two off, go on holiday, do what you need to do, a month maybe, but then get back in the gym and work out. How
else do you kind of keep your mind sharp? I mean, you gotta do you take some moments for yourself to also kind of soak it in, but also just keep your mentals.
I'm getting better at that. So I didn't used to. I used to just be work, just constantly focusing on the next thing. But the success of Have a Word, our podcast, and the success of this tour and things going well, I do just take a few moments every now and then now to just be like, hang on. Don't just worry about what's coming next. Just enjoy where you are and if I stay exactly where I am forever now, be happy with that because it's still pretty fucking incredible.
Yeah.
And I've also started just taking days and time off for myself.
Yeah.
like just going and taking a spa day on my own and just swimming, sauna, getting a massage, back in the pool.
Yeah.
Like, I did that yesterday before I came here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I just went to the Balmoral Hotel in Edinburgh and just booked a massage, booked access to the spa.
Nice.
Literally just sat there for 3 hours just on my own.
Jesus.
And just the silence, the odd scroll on my phone, just great.
And I'm also curious, and you talked about another podcast, it's only the only reason I'm bringing it up, that you're recently single.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious as to, like, obviously you don't have to go into details, but like kind of balancing, because you have a workman mentality, and I think that's why you are having the success and will continue to have the success that you do. The balance between work life, personal life, and I think like, and how important do you like, how important is the career while also having a significant other for yourself?
Okay, so in the most recent relationship I had, I feel like I got the balance pretty good.
Okay.
But I also think that was aided by the pandemic, which we'll come back to.
Okay.
The relationship I had before that, which was a lot longer than the most recent one, I don't think I was a great boyfriend.
Okay.
I think I expected her to just accept that I was very career driven. And if I had to cancel plans to go and do an important gig, she had to accept that.
Interesting.
Now, I was very upfront about that at the start. I was very like, look, this is what I do. This is how I approach it. This is what it's going to be like. By being with me, you're signing your life over to me as copyright material. And and I am going to work and I am going to take every opportunity given to me because I've worked for a long time to make this possible. I was upfront about it, but that still doesn't make me a good boyfriend. I was honest, but that's still not good.
Interesting.
The most recent girl.
How long were you guys together for?
A year, just under a year. So we started in lockdown 3.
Okay. Oh yeah, you guys said like you're different. You had a million lockdowns.
So we the first 4 months we were locked down. So we seen a lot of each other.
Yeah.
She basically moved in quite quickly. Like she just didn't go home, and I didn't want to go home because then I'd have been in my house on my own, texting her while she was in her parents' house, and it just. So we moved very quickly, and she basically moved in, and then when we come out, I started working again. But I told her at least 1 weekend a month I will keep for me and her, because I finally had the financial freedom to do that because the podcast was making money.
Yeah.
And we went on trips and whatever, and I took her with me to some weekends away when I was gigging away. Do you want to come with me if she wasn't working or whatever? So I was getting that balance right. I think now, so this tour's quite big. Started in February, runs till the end of June. There's a couple of weekends off in it. I think it's a good time for me to have become single. I didn't want to be, obviously. But we had a problem. I had to break up with her. Simple as that. That runs to June. In July and August, there's a potential that I'm going to be in the States and maybe Canada for a bit. And so I'm going to be away for another month. And then when we come back, I've got to start writing the next tour show.
Right.
I think I'll be single for a little while now. Because I've put myself in a position through over a decade of work, and now the podcast giving me a profile which is attractive to bookers and TV people and whatever, that I need to use the opportunities I've been given.
Right.
But I am also a family man. I'm a family person, and I sort of want me cake and eating it too. Yeah. I want to have this huge career whilst also having a family and success and stuff. So I don't think it'll be too long before I start being like, you know what, I could probably settle down, meet a girl, see how it's going. And I also know myself pretty well. If I really like someone, then I can't turn it off.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very, very, very difficult balance to find.
Yeah.
And a lot of comedians end up divorced, and a lot of musicians end up divorced, and anyone who's on the road ends up divorced. But there is exceptions to every rule.
Yeah.
I think it's just about giving your partner, making them not feel like they're a second fiddle to your career, but also still having a lot of time for your career.
Do you think that being honest about that right in the beginning is Like, is that something that you think about, or like in the future that you'll actively do to make to set that expectation, I guess?
Yeah. So if I ever seen something going somewhere with a girl, like where we're going to end up in a relationship and whatever, I would be like, look, my career is this. It's so important to me. I need someone who's going to support it.
Right.
But by you supporting it, you will get a lot of boyfriend out of me. You'll get a very supportive partner who is there as often as he possibly can be.
Right.
And you just need to be safe in the knowledge that I'm working for both of us.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying the partner I'm with can't work and have their own.
Right.
I'd much prefer to meet someone who's just as driven in whatever they're passionate about. Like, someone passionate about what they do is one of the most
extremely
attractive things.
Yeah.
I'll support you. You support me. Let's be a team.
Right.
And everything I'm doing is not just for my legacy, but so that we can have a pretty incredible lifestyle.
Right.
And anyone who doesn't understand that,
it's probably not the right one.
Is not. Yeah. You couldn't put it any better. If they don't get what I'm doing and what I'm trying to do, then we're never going to work anyway.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, I think like the older I get, the more I try to adapt that mentality. Yeah. And then instead of like trying to change people, you're not going to change people.
No, you shouldn't want to.
Exactly. You don't want to.
Like, the one way to make sure someone behaves in the way you don't want them to is to ask them not to behave.
Well, exactly.
Like,
exactly. That's why I was always like, the kids that had the strictest parents are the kids that are doing the most drugs.
100%.
That's
you just need someone who gets you, you get them, and you're willing to accept each other's lifestyles. And trying to force anything else. So there's an amazing.
Yeah.
Do you know Daniel Sloss?
I do. I saw his Netflix special. I love it.
So I don't know which one of his Netflix specials it is. I think he called it Jigsaw.
I think that's the one I saw. What was the other one?
I think it might have just been Daniel Sloss Live.
Okay, yeah, then I think I saw the Jigsaw one.
So his analogy in Jigsaw, and I apologize to Daniel, not that he will watch this, but he for sort of go and watch Daniel Sloss Jigsaw, pause it here, go and watch his way of doing it, and then come back and watch me ruin it. So his analogy of your life is a jigsaw, but you've lost the box, so you don't know what it's meant to look like. So you end up putting all the corner pieces in first, and then there's a big hole in the middle. And because you're looking from a distance at someone else's, you're like, oh, theirs looks more complete than mine. I need to hurry up. Yeah. And you tend to put a relationship in the middle, but to do it, you take out bits of you. You take out a friend or a hobby or whatever. He's like, well, actually, you're supposed to find the piece that just fits.
Yeah. It's well said. It's brilliant.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And he's caused something like 10,000 breakups, and genuinely. Like, he had a tally at one point. It's like over 10,000 breakups, hundreds of cancelled engagements, and
what does he say about that?
He's made up because he thinks he's doing God's work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe he is.
Wow. Jigsaw and Dark is the other one. Jigsaw tally 120,000 breakups. 300 divorces, both with plus after it.
Wow. Hey, maybe he is doing God's work.
As long as those people are happier now, then he's done something right.
I always like to end my episodes with, and you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but obviously you're going to have a lot of healthy life ahead of you. But when it's all said and done, legacy-wise, obviously the way your peers see you is important. But like as a man, as a comedian, as a whatever roles that you continue to adapt into, how do you hope that people remember Adam Rowe when it's all said and done?
He was sound. Like, he helped his mates out. He did everything for everyone that he could, and he called cunts out on being cunts.
That's a good one.
Like, sound to sound people, and an absolute bell end to bell ends. If you're a knobhead, I will treat you like one. And if you're just sound and polite and whatever, you'll get whatever you want out of me. And that's how I'd like to be remembered.
Simple enough. Beautiful. Well, Adam, thank you so much for
Thanks for
taking the
having us, mate. I really
time.
enjoyed that.
I do, and I mean, I feel like I could talk to you for hours, but we're on a crunch. But you know, and I hope that the next time you're out in New York, I'll see you. I'll see you
definitely drop you a message,
wherever.
mate.
Yeah, and maybe get you in my studio in New York. But I'm excited for you just because I think that like I love when people that love what they do and are genuine about it, and I think have all the right working intentions and then all the right human intentions as well. When all of it's kind of coming together, because you deserve it. You know what I mean? And I think that the success that you're continuing to have and will continue to have is all you. You deserved every ounce of it, and you're humble, so you might not say it in that way, but I think that like, you know, I'm as someone from the outside looking in, it's and just, you know, going over your work and preparations for this, I'm very excited for you, and
I appreciate that a lot. I'm smart enough, like, as there is an element of humbleness in some ways, but I'm very conscious that I've put a lot of work in to make things
100%.
happen, and everything that has come. I've had some opportunities that have been given to me by gatekeepers, you know, bit of TV and stuff. But all the major things has come from making good and smart decisions at the right time and shouting about them while I'm doing it. So I am conscious of that, and I'm very proud. And I don't shy away from the fact, even though everyone wants to be humble in some regard, I don't shy away from the fact that I've worked for it. Because I want every other comedian to take control of their own career and do their own thing. The same way I have and Schulz has, and every other comedian who's going for it and going, no, here's me special. Here's 8 clips. Here's me podcast. Here's this. Here's a sketch I made. Make your own stuff. Put it out. Ask your mates to give it a share for you. And things just get better. Good. The internet is full of content now, but cream always rises to the top. There's nothing stopping the best reaching the top. If you make good stuff consistently, people will see it. You'll get noticed, and there's nothing in your way anymore.
Enough said.
Lovely.
Beautiful. Well, that's it, but thank you again, seriously.
Thanks very much, mate.
Thank you so much for watching this video. If you haven't done so already, please make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Instagram at felix.levine, and if you have something to say, please leave a comment.